You've heard a bit about, in the news, New Zealand Post in the last, week at least. Now, they could eventually stop delivering mail to individual letterboxes and instead require clusters of boxes under proposed changes. The government is consulting on changing the deed of understanding it has with NZ Post. Among the changes, reducing the minimum delivery frequency and allowing New Zealand Post to deliver, as I said, to a cluster or community boxes for new addresses. Last week, MB, Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, announced it was seeking feedback on these said proposed changes. But the Postal Workers Union says the proposal is selective, misleading, complicated and, basically inaccessible. When you look at the numbers, though, figures show there are 813 million fewer mail items being sent compared to 20 years ago, and this is expected to further decline to about 100 million items by 2028. Well, joining me now is John Maynard. He's the co-national president of the Postal Workers Union of New Zealand. John, a very good afternoon to you.
Very good afternoon to you too.
John, what do you see that MB has missed out on in this feedback process? You think it's a bit misleading, correct?
Indeed. So we're okay about government departments doing surveys of what people need for or want for their postal service. But the problem is they're talking about going down to every 2 days delivery, 2 days a week delivery instead of 3 for people in the towns and the cities, and 3 instead of 5 for rural. And so they've got a consultation process, and it's quite complicated. You've got to go online and you've got to look at this template for submission. Now, in the submission, it asks you in one question, question number 10, if you were thinking about moving house, how would you feel about moving to an area that didn't have a New Zealand Post delivery? Now, that's okay, except that what they don't ask you is how do you feel that we're going to start requiring existing homeowners who are not necessarily moving their home to have cluster letterboxes and stop delivering at your house. Now, that is a fundamental question about everybody right through the country with a letterbox at their gate. New Zealand Post is, MB is consulting about this matter. That question is not on the what do you call those things? The submission template.
Ah, okay.
It's a very good question. I think it's a very good question to ask New Zealand Post. What on earth is going on here?
So you're saying that they're looking into or the possibility of even those of us that do have a letterbox at the end of our driveway could in the future. I mean, we would have where would I get my mail? Would it be one of these community boxes?
It'll be, the company's given a range of names for them, and it could be anything. They've said it could be a community mailbox, it could be a counter, whatever that is, it could be letterbox nests, or it could be letterbox clusters. So down the end of your street or wherever it might be. I mean, we've already had examples of those being broken into because they're not on your front of your house, and it could be somewhere where nobody really has any oversight. But to want to do that, so they've listed 5 things they want to change. 2 of them are rural, one of them's rural, one of them's domestic, but 2 of them relate to the business of, one is new subdivisions, so new subdivisions, they won't go into them, but the question about existing, who's by far the biggest number of people, existing householders, they want to stop delivering to the letterbox, that question is not on the submission template, even though it's listed as one of the things that the company wants to be able to do. And you have to read through 11 pages of the discussion document before you find out. They're talking about delivery points, and then it defines a delivery point, and then it says they want to be able to 5% a year. They're talking about changing over, where no longer they'll come to your house. They'll just deliver to some community or a supermarket counter. We don't know.
Right. This is, John, I'm gathering this is a cost. This is all cost cutting, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and one of the reasons there'll be cost-cutting is that the Minister of State and Enterprises, Paul Goldsmith, wrote to the chair of New Zealand Post in April, setting out what he expected. One of them was cost-cutting and returning surplus cash to the government. Cost-cutting, ongoing cost-cutting. And what did New Zealand Post do the next month, May this year? $100 million special dividend back to the government. So they're cutting the costs all right. The customers, the people are going to pay for it, but the money is being sucked up by the government. And then we had the finance minister Nicola Willis saying a month ago that one of the reasons they've got a $3.5 billion hole in the budget is underperforming state-owned enterprises. So they're bleeding the cash out of the state-owned enterprises who are running down the service to be able to give the money back.
John, you heard the figures though. You know that mail, fewer items are being sent compared to 2 decades ago, and they're expecting a further decline. So, I think, John, I'm going to ask. I mean, is this inevitable? We're going to see people not even needing a letterbox?
Well, New Zealand Post considers that there'll always be mail. And certainly mail volumes have gone down. I mean, people use all sorts of different ways of communicating, and we understand that. But the figures that New Zealand Post produces about the loss of mail are a bit misleading as well, because they've lost so much mail to competitors because New Zealand Post service has been so bad. The company will want to put on about another 50 diesel and petrol-powered vans to pick up the mail that they want, that posties are doing now. But we have a counter-proposal that we have a much fewer number of posties riding electric bikes and electric motorcycles, carrying letters, small packets and small parcels. The couriers don't want to deliver mail, and a lot of the small packets that they're given now, they lose them on the floor, they tape them to other boxes. Yeah. So it would be, we have a case in the Employment Relations Authority in Auckland in February next year, saying that the company failed to comply with the collective agreement when they want to sack all of the posties. Instead, we have a counter-proposal. They didn't minimise redundancies, and that would be to maintain a letterbox delivery service with fewer posties, but carrying more than they're carrying now. The company's pretty much stripped them of letters and packets, given them to the couriers. The posties want them back. Okay.
So if we can just go back to the process, though, that you were talking about, you feel it's too short for the public to have their say. What would you like to see, John?
Well, we think it should be at least 3 months. When I say it's inaccessible, we've seen from the census last year that 10% of the population don't have internet access, and they are the very people who might say, I want to have a letterbox mail delivery to my house. The next one is that because the survey is misleading, people who think, 2 days a week, I can handle that, don't realise that the company wants to stop delivering to their letterbox, and the company hasn't told them that. And I think that's really serious matter, that it needs to be a longer time so that people can become aware of this and also have a much simpler way of making your submission. It's a really complicated process to have to go online and trawl through, all these pages of stuff before you find out what it is the company wants to do.